there's so many avenues that you can get into when you're kind of an established kind of person.
Yeah.
And I think it's just stick to your knitting, eh?
True. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dan had to push me a bit to get the podcast going, but it's been going.
That's great.
Going big gangbusters.
Didn't have to push you that hard.
No.
You were just like, should we do it? And then I was like, here we go.
Cool. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, what episode is this going to be?
I think it's
26.
Yeah, that's dope.
Oh, well, yeah,
That's
we've got
super
some
cool.
in the bank, like, for later stuff.
Yeah,
but-
cool.
Yeah, no, I'm really pleased with how the podcast is
Yeah,
going.
that's awesome.
We're nearly got at 3,000 downloads.
Yep.
So that's fantastic. And anyway, enough about the K-Road Chronicle. Are we recording? Are we?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
It's always the thing, we start talking and it's just like Dan presses the record button and we've got no idea what's going on.
Never know,
But,
you might say something mildly interesting.
Mildly interesting, let's hope.
Hopefully it'll be better than that today. We have, from the most underrated part of the electric guitar, the Whammy bar. Is that how you named your bar, Tom?
Something like that. It was already named Whammy Bar,
Ah.
but it definitely has connotations towards guitars. Yes.
Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
I'm Tom Anderson, co-owner of Whammy Bar, and I believe it actually came from a B-52s record that we have behind the bar called Whammy. That's where
Really?
that's where the original logo came from anyway. So
Oh, that makes sense. That's
yeah.
cool. And how long's Whammy Bar been going? For the uninitiated, what is Whammy Bar? Where is Whammy Bar? Who is Whammy Bar?
I don't know if anyone's uninitiated. I feel like everyone in Auckland's been there at some point.
I don't know, bro. You got to look at the stats. We got listeners in Copenhagen and Denmark. And
Yeah, right.
Okay, anyway, yeah, what is the Whammy
tell
bar?
us about Whammy Bar, because it's not just a kind of corner street bar. It's a cornerstone of our musical on live music on K Road. And
In New
let's
Zealand,
face
yeah.
it, there's less and less all the time.
There is. I mean, we took over 10 years ago. It had been running for about 5 years prior to that. So it was started by Rowan, who still owns and runs Wine Cellar. It's in the basement of St Kevin's Arcade, very much the basement. And it's now spread out to have 2 rooms. So we've got Whammy, which is a 200-cap music venue, and Backroom, which is a 100-cap music venue. And then next door, which we work very closely together with, Wine Cellar, which is also a 100-cap room. So...
And every week there's like something going on.
Yeah, so I mean, we only open for shows. So if we've got events booked, the idea is to have one in each room, back room and main room, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we're doing things on Wednesdays. And now that the borders are opened up and we've got international shows, you know, they might be on a Monday or a Sunday or a Tuesday. So yeah, so it's not a bar like that, like we were just talking about having regular open hours where our doors are generally at 8 p.m, but we're not open from 5 like other places just for a drink, you know.
What's the local music scene like? Like, who are the bands to look out for?
I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, I think it's really different than when we started maybe 10 years ago. When we started 10 years ago, or when we took over 10 years ago, the venue was at certain points the only lighting in the venue was literally like a Bunnings light that was hanging from the ceiling off a hook. And
By the way, Bunnings are not a sponsor.
they are not a sponsor, not yet. They could be. They're just down the road.
Yeah, come on board.
And you know, and it's now built into something with a lot more of, I guess, a stable and professional kind of feel. And I feel like bands are kind of doing that somewhat as well. Is that a lot of the bands 10 years ago, you know, we get new bands starting out and they've already got press kits, they're already kind of planning recordings and things like that. So having played in bands for 25 years, it's a real difference that we're kind of seeing, I guess, in venues and bands at the same time, kind of getting their shit together a little bit more. I think.
I mean, how does it work? Because I know there are some places that charge the bands to perform, and then it's up to the bands to make the money back on the cover. To me, that's ass about face, because to me that's like charging the plumber to come and do your plumbing.
It depends on the setup of the place, right? Like if you're a restaurant type / bar that has customers that are coming in there anyway, and you need to provide some entertainment for them, and you're not charging a door charge, then you're paying a band to come and play what's called a guarantee to play in the corner of the venue. For somewhere like Whammy, we take the bar, you take the door. So there's a baseline charge of covering for sound engineer, and that's about it. And we've got free backline, you get your security covered, all that sort of stuff. And different venues have different structures.
I get the feeling though, like there's a part of the industry, the venue managers that say, "Hey, look, we're doing you a favour by performing." Whereas I see it that as if you're nobody wants to go to an empty, lifeless bar. So the band is actually bringing you their audience,
and that's totally one valid structure. There's different ones. We only open, and a lot of smaller venues might only open because they have a concert going on. And rather than seeing as the band's doing the bar a favour or the bar's doing a band a favour, I'd like to think it's some sort of symbiotic thing where they're working together to have a good night.
People would play at the Whammy bar and they're just kind of guaranteed a crowd because people just go there on Friday or Saturday night. Let's just go see what's playing at Whammy.
Do they do? Is that much of the market?
I've done it,
Yeah, and I mean, there is that to a degree, but I also think there's such a variation. Like some venues might just have dance music or rock music or whatever, because it might be a DJ night or it might be a band night, it might be whatever. That does kind of depend, but bands have to bring along their audience to watch them, and bars have to provide, or venues have to provide a good place for them to do that with them.
You've had a lot of fucking bands through your bar. Yeah. What's some of the cooler international acts that you've got to meet or hang out with or just watch?
I think some people aren't that into kind of having the bigger acts play in smaller intimate venues, but for me that's like I work and organise a lot of the really bigger shows, and it's way cooler doing it at Whammy, and I get that there's sightline issues and all that kind of thing, but that's all part of it. And so our friends in Unknown Mortal Orchestra did a sold out town hall show at Auckland Town Hall, and then afterwards they did a midnight show at the bar. Cool. And that was sick. That was super dope.
Unknown Mortal Orchestra, amazing. A new album, V5.
Yeah.
So good.
Super cool.
What's your advice to young artists out there that are just getting their shit together? They've got a bit of a playlist and they want to break into the live scene.
Go to shows.
Yeah.
Meet people. I think it's weird. Like some people, I grew up, as a lot of my friends did, really organically in the punk rock scene in Auckland. Going to shows, the King's Arms and others, and just from that...
You know where the King's Arms is?
What do you mean?
Where the King's Arms is?
On his shoulders?
On his shoulders.
Yeah.
I wish I had a 500 cap venue like the King's Arms. All of those relationships from just going to shows, organising shows, playing in bands.
Just immerse yourself.
Yeah, just do that. I mean, it's funny. Like I used to teach at Mains for.
I studied there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Back in the day. Yeah.
Back in the day, yeah. So I taught there, and people would be like, "Oh, how do I get to do X, Y, and Z?" And I'd be like, "Go to shows, meet people."
Because you're not just a bar operator; you're also like a music producer, audio engineer.
Yeah, I'm a sound engineer and production manager and musician, and a number of different things. And so, and that's kind of a number 8, do it all kind of attitude, which lends itself to being in bands and also being, running venues.
So you have a recording studio too?
I work out of recording studios. Yeah, I haven't done that so much. I'm more in the live side these days. So that kind of pays the bills, and the bar is in my backyard and something cool that we get to do.
Yeah.
Cool. What do you notice? Like, are you noticing any trends or themes going on in the local music industry?
Only maybe in the sense of like guitar music that goes in and out of popularity, or particular types of dance music that go in and out of popularity. And I feel like maybe 10 years ago we were having another surge of lots of really great guitar bands, and then it kind of died out, and lots of people were like, you know what, I'm going to spend a lot more time going to some really cool underground dance music. And now it kind of seems to be swinging back again, where people like, and it tends to be organic as to whether or not who's making that music or who's putting those kind of shows on at the time. So it's cool.
If you could design your fantasy band
A fantasy band.
Fantasy band, 5 musicians, living or dead.
Yeah.
Who's going to be your lead singer? Who's going to be your lineup? Who's going to be your bassist and your drummer?
Oh, man. This is hard.
I'd definitely have David Bowie as lead.
Yeah, you have David Bowie as your lead singer?
Definitely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, you seem to have thought more about this than I have. What about who else would you have in your favourite band?
Jimmy Page.
Okay.
The Who,
both have questionable.
The Who drummer.
Keith Moon.
Keith Moon.
Yeah.
Who would I have on bass? I'd have to think about bass.
Yeah.
It's a lot of great bass players, and they don't often get the recognition that they deserve, because it's like, oh fuck it, it's just bass.
Yeah, that's all the interaction between the other players, right? Like, an awesome bass player like Joe Lally from Fugazi would be awesome in a band, but possibly not in that band. I don't know. Might not work with those other players.
So what's coming up, Whammy? Tell us what's happening.
Well, I mean, we're coming up. It's going to be...
Are you doing anything for Marariki?
Marariki, yep, we are. But I don't have the list of what it is, because I don't do the bookings anymore or involved in that side.
So what's the best way to keep up with what's happening at Whammy?
The Instagram page or the Facebook page, yeah. I'll check you through.
Nobody's really doing a really good gigs guide anymore.
No, we were doing, you might have said it, every month we were kind of... we were doing the posters, and now because things have changed, particularly post-COVID, and it's been kind of a pretty wild ride running venues throughout that. It's kind of gone more weekly as things kind of move around. But
yeah,
that
I like
gets
that
posted
big
up.
poster you'd make with every single event.
Yeah, might make that a priority for the Chronicle Instagram to post more gigs.
Yeah,
things.
Totally.
Like, especially if you guys can keep me going, which brings me to like thinking, what's the collaboration like between you and the Whammy and Wine Cellar and all these other venue places? Is there a sense of collaboration? Or competition?
Nah, it's collaboration. Like, I mean, out of COVID, myself and Lucy, who co-owns Whammy with me, we were part of forming Save Our Venues, and because we got a huge amount of support from our community, and so we spread that literally nationwide, and we now have an organisation for grassroots music venues.
Do you get any money from like New Zealand or Creative New Zealand?
We've had money funding through MCH and Ministry of Culture and Heritage, and also through the Music Commission, and are working with Massey on a number of projects. So there's a bunch of cool stuff that's kind of going on that means that we run a music venues summit. Just done the second one. So first one we did a year ago, where we get some funding to bring up other venue owners like ours from around the country, put them up in Auckland on K Road. They come and hang out at the bars. We'll go up to Archer and have a drink and talk, but also do some panel discussions and share ideas. And that's some of the kind of silver lining stuff that's happened with venues out of what's been a really hard few years.
Yeah, well, aren't they... We're hearing rumours that they're raising the rent in St Kevin's Arcade by quite a lot. And is that impacting you guys?
I've had very public battles with our landlord over there.
Paul Reed.
Yeah.
Bitcha Duba, what's his band?
No. Bitcha Duba was Liam Finn. It was a very good band. Rubicon was Paul's band.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it has been since, was it 7 years ago? 7 years ago that the arcade was sold, and it's been a fairly concerted effort, and as you know well, around the street to raise rents.
This year or next year, it's going to be 100 years since the St Kevin's Arcade was created.
But next year, 2024, because I live in Espano. Flats, the ones at the top of Myers Park, and they were built around the same time. I think 28 finished.
Yeah, in Paul's defence, I mean, Paul gets a lot of grief, but he did put a lot of money into that place to bring it up. I think it was something like 26 million, and that was after the purchase price. So, we could have just as easily been in a position where we're like, save St Kevin's Arcade, because it's a pretty special building.
It's a very special building. I will say, I was in a much better position prior to that. I don't think I've been on this street since almost 30 years now, I think, in different capacities of, discovering first record shops like Crawl Space or whatever. And, I think we're still a basement. It doesn't really affect us what happens up the top. So
that's part of that is part of the Whammy and Wine Cellar charm, is they are literally dive bars.
Yes, exactly.
Classy dive bars.
Well, the term dive bar comes from you diving down into a basement. So, could it work? Could you relocate Whammy?
No, you couldn't. It's very locations based. I mean, it's interesting since we've had it, like the politics of space, and you'll understand it having this spot here in Limchow, which is super dope. Would running the K Road Chronicle out of anywhere but the kind of heart of Karangahape Road work? No, not really.
No.
And the same with Whammy. It's like, we've talked about where the next Karangahape or cross street kind of vibe areas would be. 10 years ago there was, within a stone's throw of the car park out the back, you could hit like almost double figures of music venues or creative spaces that people were, and that's getting less and less now, purely because of rent. So gentrification, 100%. So, and that is one of the biggest issues that faces the street, I think, is how, particularly with the City Rail Link coming out, how do we still have cool spots like your Whammys, Wine Cellar? How do we have that community? How do we do what you do? But when the rent skyrockets up, or are we going to get McDonald's back on the street again?
While we're on that subject, just want to give a shout out to Moy Chow, who is very generous by providing the space for the Chronicle, where we print it, we produce it, and without it, I think we're really fortunate on Karangahape Road to have a real sense of community, and unless we provide those spaces for young creative entrepreneurs, gentrification will just rip the heart out of our community, and it will become another bland, there'll be a Westfield.
100%. I mean, there used to be, McDonald's was one street up or something. There was a Starbucks.
There was one in the food court.
There was, actually. Yeah, it was. I got arrested in it once, actually.
Really? What
when
for?
I was 17, pulling the fingers at a cop.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that illegal?
Yeah. Well, doing it repeatedly apparently was. Yeah. It seemed like a good idea.
You're only allowed to do it 3 times.
Yeah. It was the 4th they stopped and came back and got me. But
so it's a peace sign, man.
Yeah. But I mean, and that is the reality, is as people invest money, inverted commas, in the community, commercial rents go up, private rents go up, rates go up, all the rest of it. City Rail Link goes in, it's way more connected. People try and capitalise on that. Yeah. How do we keep this? Like, the City Rail Link's going to be amazing. Yeah. But also,
really cool.
As somebody who owns property and leases commercial property here, it might be too much to kind of live here. So how do we juggle that? I think that's a really big question.
Is there a potential of reaching a tipping point where it all goes pear-shaped?
I hope so.
And falls down?
I hope so.
And becomes the low-rent area it once was?
Well, I mean, it used to be real fancy, right? Before the motorway got put in, and the motorway is what cut it off. The motorway is what turned it into red light district. So, things are cyclic. I'd like to think that something like that would happen, but I'd hope it happened in my lifetime. I feel a bit bummed out that I lived in the time of the re-gentrification of K Road.
Yeah, it's like, if you look at the economics, it's like there'll be a lot of landlords, a lot of investors that have got money just land banked. And if there's another pandemic or there's another disaster, they could easily go, fuck it, I've got all this equity tied up in this building that's empty, and then it gets sold on. And then the next owners have less capital tied up in that building. So therefore the rents come down, and it's kind of a decomposition.
Which I'd really hope would happen, but I think if you look at what happens on Upper Queen Street, where there is, and even from the IMAX building and all that kind of stuff, like when I was a kid, I went to school for a year or two in Senior College, just by the library there, and Midtown was like going off. It was like, it was crazy. You had borders and you had all this cool stuff, people hanging out in the square. Now it's a complete dead zone, to the point where the council's investing money to bring things to Midtown. And I think K Road could be like that as well, because it's like you got all these buildings for lease, but no one will rent them for cheap.
Yep.
Like, because you could have so many cool venues up there. I mean, there used to be, what was Temple? I think it was the first place.
I love the Temple.
It was where I played my first show, I think, in the late 90s.
We used to drive up from Hamilton to go to Temple Bar.
Yeah, so the first time I ever tried to organise a gig with my first band, we tried to organise it at the K Road Pool Hall. Do you remember the pool hall that was downstairs?
Yeah, that was scary.
Yeah, it was scary. So I was like 16, 17.
Yeah. What was your band called?
They were called Risto Rockers at that point. They were a ska band.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we tried to book it there, and then on the day, they were like, "Oh no, you only penciled it. You didn't book it," because I didn't know what I was doing. So my dad called up and was like, "Hey, you got to let my son and his friends play." And they're like, "How old's your son?" He's like 17. This was the drinking age was 21 at that point. He's like, "Well, they can't anyway." And we jumped on a open mic night at Temple Bar. That Karen Temple, I think, was running at the time, or somebody. And yeah, that was a cool venue. But somewhere around there, they've been sitting empty for ages. You could have so many cool music spaces, creative spaces, artist spaces, but they won't rent them out cheap because that drops all the other rents down.
But that's all post-COVID then? Or?
Yeah, it's pre-COVID as well.
It was already...
It was already on its way out because
the prices
just go up and up.
Look on K Road, you've got like 4 prime locations, you've got corner locations, all available. You've got the old Westpac, which you've got the opticians on the corner that's sitting there empty.
What's even up above the old Westpac, above up where Kuja Lounge and stuff used to be? What's even up there? Is it a church or something?
No, I think it's Amnesty International.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah.
So was that kind of a godsend for the local bands when none of the international bands could come in, and Whammy's like, shit, we got to get all the local bands playing?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, so many local acts did amazingly well. I mean, all the way up to your pop acts like your 660s and LABs was, literally selling out stadiums. And with no one else to kind of compete against, and that's awesome for them. And also on the small level, there was definitely some cool bands that got there because there was nothing else. Yeah. Music festivals when they came back, all of a sudden you had really weird lineups at things like, your Rhythm and Vines and stuff, the New Year's festivals, because there was no internationals that could come out.
UB40 couldn't come.
Yeah, or whatever, yeah, totally. So it was cool, yeah. And also I think the community that came out to support smaller venues during that time when we could only play to had 100-person limits and things, which is really hard when you're a small basement that can only fit 200 at the best of times. And bands like the Beths, who are really good friends of ours, they did 5 nights in a row down at Whammy rather than doing another town hall.
Cool.
Like I think they did a sold out town hall, and then during COVID they did 5 nights at Whammy, and then they did another sold out town hall like a year ago. And things like that were really cool, like...
Yeah, 5 nights at Whammy sounds like a movie or something.
Yeah, King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard did it as well. It was
5 nights?
4 or 5 nights.
Really?
Yeah, in a row.
I missed that.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Are you playing in a band now?
I'm not currently, but,
You're looking to start one?
Yeah, totally. You looking to start one?
Yeah, I'll play guitar.
Yeah, sweet as.
What are your bass, right?
Yeah. And saxophone.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking the other night about, everyone who works at Whammy is a musician, so, it's been a long talk of having, Wham, the Whammy house band for a long time.
Yeah, the first time I went to Whammy, there was a band playing called the PCP Eagles.
That was my band.
Right, yeah. And I went up to the bar as a joke, and I was like, you got any PCP? And they're like, yeah, it's on tap. Because you'd, named the band after the beer you were producing?
We'd got a friend who was... so everyone in that band worked at the bar in some capacity. I did sound and singer and drummer that worked behind the bar, blah, blah, blah. And we had a friend who worked at Shakespeare at that time, I think, did the first PCP lager. So our friend Matt Short, he brewed the PCP Pilsner, actually. Yeah.
All right.
And then we had a Whammy lager as well.
So you named the band after the beer?
No.
The beer was named after the band?
Yeah, totally.
All right.
That's clever.
Yeah.
Have you tried this new K Road perfume?
I've
Road.
Okay, we got to talk about that because I have tried to get it, and then it made me so angry that I couldn't get it, and then I was like, they're going to do 5 or 10 a day, so I haven't got. Yeah. I have had it. I have tried it. It's great.
It's hideous.
You don't like it?
It smells like.
Well, you're not going to be given any, are you, to sell?
Hell no. I think it's quite.
Well, what's the ingredients? Is it's based on like sweat and like.
Well, that's it's all marketing stuff. Yeah. But what I did really like that it had a piece of the road as the top of the bottle.
Yeah, that's the best part from it.
I think that's super dope.
It's genius.
And I imagine it will get released more widely. It's kind of more like a like icon to have, you know, like the like Tim D's photo of the Vegas girl, or like the deaf skateboard or something, you know.
Right, so. I love that photo. The one, that's a Throwing Tap restaurant. They've got it on the wall there.
I've got one. It's in my lounge.
Who's
in
the
my
photographer
place.
of that?
Tim D.
Tim D. Yeah.
So I think it summed up K Road at that time, you know.
Yeah.
It's cool. All the cops outside.
Well, what's changed?
The Vegas girl's different now. It's been repainted by Chris Stapp.
Yeah. She's got some makeup.
I think that's about the fourth version of the Las Vegas one. I actually thought it was always been the same, but it's got National Historic protection.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. It should do.
Yeah.
Did you know the pleasure chest? The pleasure chest where
I know the pleasure.
Camera shop.
I used to work at Thirsty Dog for years. So
the sign got stolen.
No way.
Oh, the adult store one.
Yeah, the adult store sign got stolen.
Yeah.
It just happens to be at your place, does it?
I cannot comment on that possibly.
No, it's not.
No, apparently
there's a reward actually. What's that called?
It's called. It used to be. It's changed its name. It's a really good camera shop, and I can't.
They're offering a reward for anyone with information leading to the recovery of the adult store sign.
That is
what
the
are you
most.
Gonna do with that?
That is the most K Road Chronicle headline. You know. I don't know. Put it in your.
Wanted.
Put it in your house. You know.
Dead or alive.
Yeah.
I bet it's in like some gang house or something. Honestly, you're not.
Seems the sort of thing that Dan would have in his barbershop, you know, like.
How many adverts is Dan's barbershop featured in now?
A lot. It's good. I hope it works. He cuts my hair, so.
Yeah. Hey, look, just before we wrap up, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Saloon and Family Bar, Lifewise, The White Lady, Art Shows. Everybody that contributes to the Chronicle, and remember, if you do want to support what we're doing, check out our Patreon page. Just search K Road Chronicle. Couple of dollars a month makes a huge difference. Huge. So yeah, thanks Tom for coming on.
No worries.
Any parting words of wisdom?
Not grab yourself a copy of the K Road Chronicle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Huge fan of what you're doing. Keep it up.
Cool. Cheers.
Awesome.
Thank you.
See you at the Whammy.
Cheers.
Boom.
Cool.